I would like to take this opportunity to introduce today's resource person, Dr. Ashok Rao, who has graciously accepted our invitation to join us today. He was a former head, CDT, IISc Bangalore, completed his BE from Mysore University, ME from IISc, PhD from IIT. His specialization in digital signal processing area and is known to be one of the leading figures in the area in India. In addition, he teaches and researches in area of image processing, multimedia, linear algebra, renewable resources, etc. He has over 30 years of teaching and research experience, which includes 6 years in IIT Bombay, 7 years in IISc Bangalore, 4 years in NITK Surathkal, guided PhD both in E&CE and computer science areas, and has over 100 publications. He is also a solar photovoltaic specialist, having been trained by Siemens Solar California. He is one of the very few to have taught courses and done research in multidisciplinary areas and institutions like IIT, IISc, NIT and IIM in India. We are honored to have you with us today, sir, to share your knowledge. Thank you.
Modality of using this. Yeah, okay, so I can. Switch off these label contrast. Yeah, even this can go up. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, good afternoon. There is something wrong with all of you, or there is something wrong with me. It's a nice winter afternoon. We have had food. Anyone who has not had food should go out. Yeah. Instead of sleeping, you are here trying to listen to something. And I am even worse trying to tell you something about this. But anyways, now that we are in the process, let's go ahead. I have left the slides, so don't copy the slides and spoil your time trying to read it later. You just read on the screen, internalize whatever you can. You can follow it up with the slide reading later. But what will be more useful is if you ask relevant questions and so on and so forth. The other thing is, I was unable to attend Dr. Abraham's talk yesterday. So in case there is some overlap, just let me know so that I can move forward. Okay. So for the first time, we are talking about hearing. All these days we talk about teaching. We never question whether the students are listening to us or hearing and understanding. It's very important because listening and hearing is critical to many of these things. My talk is a little pedagogic, but I'll also touch on what is currently happening. I don't have continuous working with speech and other signals right now. As and when there is some requirement, I touch that. So, predominantly we use DSP as a tool to do this, even though today almost 80% people use machine learning. So in the closing slides I will also mention how the same DSP is done through a machine learning framework now. One advantage of DSP is that it's intrinsically multidisciplinary. In the sense, DSP as it's practiced now takes so many inputs from so many things, whether it's communication theory, numerical analysis, probability, analog, decision, this and that. So many topics keep contributing to DSP, and so DSP is also conversely applicable to so many domains which we don't encounter. Okay. But today the number one field of DSP use is actually not in electronics, but in stock market. So what is either speech or audio? Basically they are analog waveforms. They look arbitrary. As I speak also, these are pressure waves that come and hit your ear. But they are not actually random. They do have hidden patterns, and that's really what is important in recognized speech recognition. Many of these patterns may be obvious and many are hidden. And of course today, thanks to entertainment industry, we have single, 2-channel, 5-channel, including surround audio, everything that has come. So there is not much difference between speech and audio. You still analyze pressure waveforms impinging the ear, but the audio is definitely a higher frequency than speech, and audio has other features which speech doesn't have. For example, a lot of audio also contains synthetic and instrumental patterns. Okay, but what is the digital part? It's basically digital representation of analog waveforms in one or many channels. It is normally sampled uniformly, even though more efficient would be non-uniform sampling, and it is quantized between 8 and 24 bits. And this quality of audio or speech is more impinged by quantization bits rather than sampling, even though sampling does matter a lot. And sampling frequency ranges from 8 kilohertz for speech right up to 48 kilohertz, which covers entire range of ear. And speech is normally sampled at low frequency because almost all speech signals, barring few kids shouting, shrieking, all that, is well within the 8 kilohertz sampling, which is maximum frequency of 4 kilohertz reconstruction. Okay, so the critical thing in the target that you are doing today is good earphones or cochlear implants or so many things. Basically intervention, electromechanical intervention, more electronic intervention into the ear. So before we go to the ear, what the ear receives is speech, and since we are all in digital domain, it's very important to look at models for speech and both production and perception. So here it is, human speech production, the motor cortex in this, the articulatory motion and sound generation. Whereas speech production model would be people with linguistics and psycholinguistics will definitely understand better. So you do a modeling of this. Then the trajectory formation models for the articulatory motion, and sound generation which leads to speech. Okay. There are a lot of control parameters, both motor task, articulation motion, vocal tract parameters, spectrum, speech waveforms, so on and so forth. There are two tasks that we do. One is perceive. When we perceive, we start with phonemes, speech motor task, articular patterns, vocal tract parameters, spectral property patterns, and then we perceive the speech. Production is reversed. Okay. So today you have online text-to-speech conversion, text-to-text conversion, speech-to-speech conversion, language-to-language conversion is also there. So today it's already there on the desks, but should soon be in the market where you can talk in any language and the receiver will hear it in any language of their choice. So you will get a recipe of 16 or 18 international languages. So one of the things that this is going to do, like what the DTP has done, what DTP has done is killed writing. Everybody's handwriting is bad today because people don't write anymore. Similarly, languages will be killed because you just need to learn one language well and you have a reasonably good rendering of that in the other. All these are beyond the earphone and other things we are looking at, but it's very generic. Okay? So you have word comprehension and a choice of words, which is again the compiler we are trained. That's why when we talk in a strange language, people know that something is being taught, but they cannot figure out. Okay? So that understanding what is spoken is independent of the speech waveforms, meaning what hits your ear has nothing to do with the content. It's a waveform, it's just air pressure waveform, variation in air pressure that hits your eardrum and you think something is being. So what the content is different because it's simply the language compilers that are, that's why as children we are taught A, E, O, A, O, all that. And then the rules of grammar, etc., etc., etc. And then of course, speech grammars are context sensitive, unlike your computer languages. Okay? So what is interesting to us for the speech is to look at how the vocal tract looks like. For example, the vowels I, O, all that. Okay. So different. I mean, you can grip your hand here and try to speak something. As you speak, you realize that there's a lot of vibration inside this. Okay. If you keep this without vibration inside and a variation, for example, oo, you will see, even without pressing, you will see difference in pressure on the list. What really happens is the following, I mean, how it's modeled. Just be clear, modeling is purely our construction. Biology doesn't tell you have to model it like that. We model it because we want to synthesize electronically. So if you look at the patterns in the throat here, okay, this is a normal throat, but then you see variation depending on the length. Suppose you have some length L. There are different levels of pressure, even though the air is blowing continuously. That's why you can't close your mouth and speak. Air has to blow out. Well, of course, the air will come from the lung. But what makes different things? Even though all this is the same, how is it that different sounds are produced? That is modeled in the following way. Suppose this is the vocal tract and the throat. You divide it into uniform segments and A7, A. So suppose you take the throat and take the cross section here while you are speaking. When you are speaking different things, the cross section of the tube is different, the area. So different areas along this will produce different production mechanism. Even though none uniformly blows air, but the primary modulation is here. The secondary and tertiary modulation is in the glottis and the tongue. That's why many sounds has to be produced using the tongue. Okay. So there are different things. For example, P. You can never say P by opening your mouth. You have to close your mouth, build more pressure. It's called plosive, like explosion, right? So there are. I won't go into speech issues because there are a lot more in that. But definitely this area of cross section. So suppose I want to say A can be treated as a combination of, I keep these small letters, A1, A2, A. 8 different area of cross section. Collectively they produce a varying tube, and that tube of volume is what produces the sound. Of course, later there's modulation from the glottis and the tongue. This it could be 8, it could be 16, it could be 256. It's very interesting that this eventually are called the linear prediction coefficients. This is exactly how they found out that some area of cross sections at different heights along the tube can be related to vowels and consonants. And you can see, if you take an X-ray while you are speaking, you will notice differences very easily. Okay. What is also interesting is when the air blows, these are like you would have done it in electromagnetics. Electromagnetic wave across a non-homogeneous boundary. So there is a reflection, there is a transmission. So some of that will reflect back, some will move, it will reflect back in the second layer, again move, so on and so forth. That's why you get tired, because to speak little, 10 times that energy you have to spend to, that's why 1 hour class is quite tiring. You spend a lot of energy because a lot of energy gets dissipated all over. So you have a boundary like this, waveform comes, some of it is reflected back, some will get transmitted, it will get further transmitted, but this one again it will reflect, this will reflect a little here, little of it will get transmitted. So this is the reason why you have that phenomenon of waves hitting non-homogeneous boundary, traveling waves. Okay, a little modification on that. So basically this model, I'll come to the linear prediction algorithm later, but this model is used to generate synthetic voice. There are mainly 2 types, which is impulse train generator. So basically it's an impulse response of a filter whose coefficients are this. That's why it's called a linear prediction filter. So you see the thinking process which has converted a physiology and anatomy issue into a DSP filter. And for certain sounds, certain types of sounds, you have a train of impulse. So you have an impulse generator which generates and it passes through a filter. It's a time varying filter and it produces speech patterns. There's also other type where there is a switch which flips from impulse generator to a noise generator. Oof. It's noise. So you have a combination of noise generator and impulse generator, which depending on the voice pattern you want, you flip from one to another, and then it produces sound. This is typically how the speech is synthesized. Okay. So models for speech is done like this, and you will see that you have an impulse generator. It shapes the pulse, width, and amplitude. It is voiced and unvoiced. Other is a noise generator, and so the basic excitation for a speech production is this, and it goes through what is a time varying filter, which is vocal tract. Even though time varying filter is mentioned like that, it is like this. Suppose you have A, B, all the way to Z. For A, you will have A1, A2, A8. For B, you will have B1, B2, B8. Etc., etc. So this is typically how they did. They had 8 coefficients because the first DSP chip you could store only 8 coefficients. 8 coefficients, each of which is 8 bit. This is exactly how Rabiner and Gold started the digital speech in Bell Labs, and they also produced the first DSP book. It's a bad book, but it got started. So you had an 8 bit, 8 coefficient. So all the linear prediction coefficients, so Z1, Z2, Z8. Which means while you say 8, A, you have the vocal tract and you break it up into 8 components. A1, A2, A8. 8 area of cross section. For B, same thing. And it will be different. That's exactly why they say it's time varying, because when you say Vidyavardhaka, so V, I, D, Y, A, you segment it, you produce individually. That's exactly how the original synthetic speech or digital speech And then of course some modulation, which is lip parameters. Today it's got more and more complicated to the point they have perfect reproduction of anybody's speech. So this is exactly what happened, I think, a week back. They got not only a deep fake voice, they got a deep fake image of Sachin Tendulkar endorsing some product, right? So now let's be very clear. From now on, unless somebody comes in front of you and talks to you, don't believe anything. It has reached that stage. So this is called the signal shaping filter. Today, of course, there is more sophistication in that. And it's not that electronics had to wait. There was a very early attempt to do it mechanically, electromechanically, and this is the electromechanical border. And you can see here, people typing words, and this lady has a like a drum this thing. So there is a pedestal where she strikes the pitch period, and this is it. You have an electromechanical device which actually produces sound based on typing, and this is in 1938-39. Okay, this you see here. The idea in the brain gets converted to speech. So very interesting. It was done in Bell Labs before the digital part. This is analog. Before the digital version came, and very interesting fellow who not many know, this Homer Dudley actually worked for 40 years in speech before producing this. Whatever he learned in 40 years, Rabiner and Gold picked it up in 1 year. So basically the gods of speech are this fellow and Flanagan in Finland, who today still has the best speech lab. We have Nokia Test Solids mobiles. Flanagan's lab is, I forgot, it was difficult because we do have the world authority in speech sitting in Bangalore. We should have got Anand Padmanabha. Anand Padmanabha worked in Flanagan's lab for his postdoc, and he is world authority because 50% of the equipment in All India Institute of Speech and Hearing is personally designed by and manufactured by him in Bangalore. He is about 83, 84 years, much senior to me in IAC, but amazing. Okay, so when the DSP chip, or the early version of the DSP chip, what you see as DSP chip is not what was then done. But this was the first product, or speak and spell by Texas Instrument. So this is the circuitry for the DSP processor, which you could speak and it would spell out. Like what you have today, so many toys have this now. Okay, so you had a microcontroller, you had a word storage of 128-bit ROM, speech synthesizer chip, solid state speech plug-in module, very good. So it's a very popular toy come entertainment come assist initially. But this led to the digital telephone. For all the work Bell Labs did, they had nothing to do with education. But their main interest was to make more money because they had a monopoly on analog telephone. They realized that if you make a digital telephone, you do many wonderful things. So because of that, DSP and other things developed. And once you have a coded version of the speech, lot of standards. Today you have standards for everything, including the earphone and cochlear implants and all that. These are your telecom, International Telecom Union speech standards, and almost always be aware. Everywhere the speech that you get is in compressed form. Only it is decompressed when you play it. These are all the compression standards depending on quality, range, bandwidth, channels, etc. etc. Okay. Now, what is interesting about speech is the following. This is the original speech. This is a speech sample at 8 bits, 8 kilohertz sample, 16 bits per sample, PCM. And this is the original speech. This is the restored speech from G.721 standard at 4 bits per sample. Okay. So this is 8 bits, 16 bits per sample at 8 kilohertz sampling rate. Whereas this is only at 4 bits per sample, which means approximately 75% compression already done. Now, very interesting thing that happens in any task which is called perception. We call somebody good. What do we mean somebody good? It's a perception. Somebody calls Modi good, the next person says no, he is bad. Both are right, both are wrong. Perception is like that. Audio and video is like that. When you say perception, when you are given this waveform, let's say this shape waveform, this is the reconstructed waveform. Now, the funny thing is, which also makes things work very well, how do you know this is good? This is original. No doubt about that. How do you know what you have done is correct? The trick in perception task, whether it's audio or video, is the following. If the error, that is this minus this is the error. If the error profile also resembles the original, you have done a good job. Which means you have faithfully tracked the waveform envelope, not necessarily accurate, but the profile is maintained excellent. This is exactly how you spot somebody in the dark. You don't see the face. Just by walking style, oh, that fellow is walking. It's just a perception. It could well be exactly the opposite person, but this is how perception. So perception tasks try their best to be accurate in the sense that I want the error profile to resemble the original. That's all. And it does happen like that here. Okay? This is simply the envelope, which is a time domain. The x-axis is time. You could also do that because like ear and speech, eye also has the same issue. Why are you hearing me? What is it that makes you hear me? You are hearing me because it's 2:30? Yes or no? You are not hearing me because it is 2:30. Why are you hearing me? What makes you hear me? This is not an order, this is not a talk, just don't worry. It's a phenomenon we are talking. I am talking at certain frequencies, which is well within your receptive capacity of your ear. So if you are deaf, whatever I talk, you don't hear. And if I talk at ultra sound frequency, you don't hear. Well, anyways, I can't talk at that frequency too, but this is it. So, all perception tasks concerning eye and ear, which also relates to mouth, which also relates to skin, by the way, is not a function of time, it's a function of frequency. You are hearing me because the frequencies at which I speak, there are other frequencies at which I speak, but it is not heard. For example, we have done some work in the forest. Elephants talk to each other at 8 hertz. Lower the frequency, longer is the hearing capacity. For example, one elephant talks to another elephant over a distance of 10 kilometers. I mean, they don't talk English and Kannada. They have low frequency grunts. These grunts indicate many things. They indicate water, they indicate food. Only humans, when they find something, they put it in a room, lock it and keep it to themselves. All animals share. They all share because evolution has made them work like that. So whenever they find water, particularly in summer, you hear this more because every animal is searching for water. So when they find the source of water, they not only drink, they announce to all their cousins saying, water is here, you come, we will all drink and we will all be thirsty together. No one person should be thirsty. Everybody should be thirsty or everybody. So this is a function of frequency, and typically you can code the whole thing in terms of frequency. For example, high frequency part, mid frequency, low frequency, you can divide it into n segments. Then you have a voiced and unvoiced portion, again the pitch period. Okay? This is the analysis, this is the synthesis, same reverse. So you can do everything in frequency domain, you can do everything in time domain. Sound exists simultaneously in time and frequency, because I am speaking in time, you are hearing in frequency. So it's simultaneous. That's exactly the reason why wavelets will do a better job than Fourier decomposition. So what about hearing? Is there any difference between hearing and listening? What's the difference between hearing and listening? Hearing and listening. You all hear. Students hear. Whenever we teach in the class, students hear. But I don't know how many are listening actually. Loosely speaking, listening is paying lot of attention to what you are hearing. We have very few listeners. You will be surprised when all the mobile phones are designed, how they are tested. It's called perceptual audio quality. And you call trained listeners. They normally go to a music school and tell them, I want 20 of your students to come and listen to what we play. They must tell how good the quality is. It's a perceptual quality, it is not absolute. So it's called mean opinion score, so 20 or 30 people. Today we don't have good listeners. Good listeners you will get only in very good music schools. So the teacher will say, first listen what I sing, how I sing. Keep listening 100 times. We are very poor listeners. We are also very poor talkers, but we talk in time, quantity, not necessarily quality. So, how frequently we hear? Almost all the time. How frequently we listen? Quite rare. Somehow we are forced to listen to authority. Even if they talk garbage, we listen to them. Okay. Why this difference? This difference is the fact that there is so much psychology and brain issues which convert hearing to listening. You are attentive, you pay, you see in the eye and listen. You don't, while they are talking, we see students talking to each other while we are teaching. They are hearing, but they are not listening. It's very clear. That's why you say be attentive. What does it mean, be attentive? Be attentive simply means please try to listen. Listen carefully, whatever. What all factors and issues make this state? Like psychophysical, psychoneural. Some today's particularly younger generation, they have attention deficit syndrome. Plenty, thanks to all the gadgets. More than 10 minutes they can't. And if you look at people who are trained to listen, I mean, at least I know personally a few nice examples. They would be made to listen for about 6 to 8 hours a day. So all the music classes would start at 4:30 a.m. First thing, very quiet, and one-on-one sit and listen. I had a good conversation with Kabubai uncle long back. She said, ನಾನು ಭೀಮಣ್ಣ ಹೇಳೋವೆ ಅವನು ಚಳಿ ಅವನು ನಂದು ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನಾನು ನೀರು ತರಬೇಕು ಹಂಡೆಗೆ ಬಿಸಿನೀರು ಕಾಸಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ಇವ್ರ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ. ಸೊ ಅವನೇ ನಂದನ್ನು ತರುವ ನಾವಿಬ್ರು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸರಿಯಿಂದ ಪಾಠ ಕೇಳೋಗಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಲಿಸ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಲರ್ನ್ ಟು ಲಿಸನ್ ವೆಲ್, people don't have to speak much. We speak 3 times, 4 times because have you understood? Have you understood? Why do we do that? We do that because people are not listening. We can discuss this. As I said, we have done this. How do we hear or listen? So the first thing you will see that ear is like this. Even though inside the tube is very small, it wants to capture a large area. Okay. And that's the reason why, for 2 reasons. Elephants are very large here. They are very large here because they can capture. This is exactly what the radar also does. Radar, when it wants to capture this thing, now today you have very large radar. Radar the size of almost this college campus. Well, the sensors which pick up, actual processing is much less. So you have the ear, and it focuses and drives the sound wave into the ear canal, and then you have all this sternum, the middle ear and the inner ear. The inner ear is where this cochlea is, and it converts sound into neural pulses. Sound doesn't go to the brain. Neural pulses, some morphine, we don't even know how it is, okay, does that. And there are a lot of things. What are the 5 L's needed for good listening? Looking at the eye. That's exactly why we say when you want to have a seminar or workshop, don't sit like in a classroom. Semicircular, so the depth of contact is less, 2 rows or 3 rows, and better listening. Then ear listening properly from the direction of the sound is exactly what your direction of arrival estimation algorithms are. Lips closed. Good listening means you are closing your lip. Okay. Then hands relaxed, and then in a comfort posture. That's why I keep saying sit. You are the only one who is sitting correctly today. You are sitting more comfortably than others. That's exactly what we want. No, I'm glad. See, all these are things which matter. If you ask students to sit as comfortably as they want in the class, some of them may put a hand, leg on the other day, I don't know. But that will increase your chance of them listening better. That's why if you look at very serious conferences, are not held in classrooms and all that. They are held sitting there, everybody has a bean bag. So everybody sits like this, like all the lions lying down and this thing, and something nice happens, okay? In the class, it's more like jail, sitting stiffly and all that. Be very clear, all this matters a lot, okay? So, the hearing part is between 20 Hz and 20 kHz. This is the range of a very good human ear. The urban ear is already bad. It will not hear 20 Hz. It starts at about 60 or 80 and stops at around 14 kHz. And there are people in, I don't know, I've lived in Mumbai for a long time, so we keep saying, is your house along the railway line? Well, you have so many railway lines in Mumbai, local trains, for a long time. And then we keep joking, is your house near the railway line? For a simple reason, 2 things. They are uncomfortable when something is very quiet. Because all the time the train sound in the listening, they are very happy. And some people without the sound of the train cannot sleep at all. This is what in urban area, because the background noise level is so high, we already have this thing. So if I want to test a good speech or audio codec today, I will not take anybody from Mysore and Bangalore for testing. No hope. because their listening is so bad, their ear is already damaged, and it's going to get worse. With so many gadgets today, you will see now in speech and hearing when you go, just check what is the average age of people coming for testing their ear. Earlier only young children with deformities or 70 and above would go. Now college students have started going. Because this gadget business, and you see in the bus, they put on this thing, mobile, finish. They are enjoying the journey, after that they'll suffer. Okay? So the process is you have a sound wave, it vibrates the eardrum, it is amplified by bones, converted to now nerve impulses in the cochlea. So you have so many things. You have hearing tests, hearing the frequencies, hearing loss and earbud, teen hearing statistics, hearing loss prevention, sound intensity, human ear, semicircular canals and balance, hearing aids, all that. So also must remember one thing. Hearing is also related to balance. People with loss of hearing in one ear do not have good balance in locomotion. You will see that when you get severe cold and your ear canal is infected, you will not even be able to balance. So all this is fairly interesting and complicated. Okay. So what is hearing aid? Hearing aid is a small electronic device that you wear behind your ear. It makes some sound louder so that a person with hearing loss and listen and communicate. The hearing can help people hear in both quiet and noisy sounds. This is really what the hearing aid is all about. It's a small electronic intervention. But the design is fairly complex because it is both physiology, psychology, anatomy, electronics, mathematics. So many things go before you, and unfortunately, like human beings, every ear is unique. So this is the problem with hearing aids. They make it for janta, right? And everybody has problem adjusting to that because the hearing aid doesn't adjust to the person. The person has to adjust to the hearing aid, right? And custom, it will happen. Now more and more custom. That means you get your ear checked and you can, in principle, design a hearing aid which suits your ear very. That's really where it is coming. So various sources of sound. The threshold of hearing is 0 dB. Normal breathing is 10. Rustling leaves 20. Soft whisper 30. Library is 40. Quiet office is 50. Conversation is 60. Busy traffic is 70. So our background today in most urban places is between 60 and 70 dB. That's why nobody knows the idea of pin drop silence. Let me tell you, when it's exceedingly quiet, you fear. It's so quiet, I mean, you must experience. It will be either in deep jungle, that also, or somewhere in Himalayas. Definitely, it is so quiet. Because we are used to some background, which means if there is some noise in the background, which means some object, something is there, or somebody is there, or something, whatever, it is better than being quiet. Okay? And train is 100 dB, construction is 110. This is one other reason that we have problem, particularly in Bangalore, along the metro line. There is so much construction up to 9, 11, 12. Everybody's ear is damaged. So whisper, sweet talking to each other, nobody hears. You have to shout. Even your emotions you have to shout, right? And machine gun, jet takeoff, rocket engine, and you can see the pain threshold. Threshold of pain starts at around 120, but constant exposure endangers hearing between 80 and 90 Hz and 90 dB. Okay? And you can see here the audiogram taken. For younger people, you can see it is a sharp response. Whereas for older people, it starts flattening out. So this phenomena with age, you have to understand all this when you make This is how it is. You can see here age group 10 to 21 years is this. Whereas by 55 to 65, it will go like this. Okay. And you also have a lot of algorithms today. That's one reason why this field is picking up. A lot of algorithms in headphones and earphones which allow you to cancel the echo. Echo cancellation is done very standard. You have an echo cancellation chip and an LMS algorithm on all your phone. All your phone terminals are like this because like I said, you have a waveform, sound waveform, it goes, hits a boundary, reflects back. It reflects back and again bounces up. So this is like, for this is like an echo because it's a same sound, amplitude lessened and back to the source. Okay. Okay, we spoke so much about the sound mechanism. We look at ear because the ear is much less understood. You had anybody mention Fletcher-Munson curves? Fletcher-Munson curves. Oh, okay. That has to be done because that's the foundation for doing hearing aids. Okay. So it's an idea called psychoacoustics. Acoustics is a physics phenomenon. Psycho is both physiology and psychology. That's the reason why we all need a good course on human anatomy and physiology because every engineering finally deals with humans and we don't understand human body well. So this is called Fletcher-Munson curves, which was done about 120 years back using a tuning fork. We had an experiment in pre-university sound where you stuck a tuning fork and put it and measured this, very similar that they did, and this you can see here. Okay. So the x-axis is frequency. Of course, it goes up to 20 kilohertz, but you can see the behavior of a very good ear. Very good ear is this, which means ear is a non-linear, non-uniform sensor. Doesn't have uniform behavior. Okay? And this is 20 dB, this is 0 dB, just the threshold of hearing. So you can see what energy a 10 decibel signal contains at 1 kilohertz for which you can hear, but the same 10 dB energy signal will have to be at almost 60 dB for you to hear at around 30 hertz. So ear is non-uniform, non-linear, and it gets worse. What is very interesting is, you see here, the best, what one calls the most sensitive part of the ear is between 1, 2, 3, 4. Between 1 and 4 kilohertz. That's exactly why you have a magic number called 125 microseconds in all your digital telephony, because 125 microseconds is the 8 kilohertz sampling, right? 1 by 8 kilohertz is 125 microseconds. 8 kilohertz sampling means you are reconstructing up to 4 kilohertz correctly. And 4 kilohertz is the most, which means if you speak at 4 kilohertz, you can speak very softly and it is heard. Now you know why all telephone operators were ladies. Even now, if somebody, you call an office and some lady picks up and says, our boss or illa, yaವಾಗ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ madam? ಆಮೇಲೆ phone ಮಾಡಿ. Anybody doesn't understand Kannada? Suppose a male picks up and says, our boss illa, hey, yaವಾಗ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಹೇಳಿ. So your response to a male voice is different from the response to exactly why all telephone operators were ladies. For two things. One, people would not shout back. they could speak, because the natural frequency of lady's voice is around 3 kilohertz, 3 to 4. Male voice is here. So genetically and evolutionary, men have been shouting for a very long time. It didn't start yesterday or the day before. They have been shouting for at least 2 million years now. So woman's natural voice is, the ear is common to male and female. The speech production is different. Yeah. So, and the same Fletcher-Munson curves at different 20 dB, 30 dB, 40 dB, how it looks. So at very high energy levels, you can see it's almost flat. So what it means is, if you shout very loudly, right, it doesn't matter what frequency you speak. As long as you speak between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz, people will hear. Okay? Now what is also interesting is this. This is a full best ear in the world. Perfect ear, this is the model, which means even a perfect ear, if you say anything at 100 hertz and it has an energy level below 20 dB, it is never heard. So everything below is not heard. And at 10 kilohertz and above, you have to really shout 50 dB before it is heard. So at very high frequencies, 16, 18 kilohertz, very high energy level signals only are heard, otherwise the ear will not. So, having said that, this is an interesting curve fitting. This is a curve, and the curve has been fitted for this. For example, this is the function of f. You can see here 3.64 f by 1000 4 to the power minus 0.8 minus 6.5 e to the power f by this whole square, etc. Very complicated curve fitting done to capture that Fletcher-Munson curve. This is done in all your digital audio. Because you want to know what is spoken and what energy level, what frequency is easy to measure. Whether it should be recorded, whether it should be put into the ear, will be decided by this curve. This is what the curve, which is the central part of your MPEG player. The MPEG audio player contains this. Okay? There is another interesting thing that happens, which you may not have observed. When I speak, you are hearing. When I keep quiet, what do you hear? Yeah, correct. You are thinking in your mind what you are hearing, but you are not able to say what it is. But the phenomenon I am explaining is what you are facing every day, every moment. So when I keep quiet, you hear the hum of the AC and little of the fan. When I am speaking, you don't hear that. This is what it is. So, for every frequency, let's say 1 kilohertz frequency, if I have a sound at 60 dB, which is exactly what I am talking, every other sound, so this is not actual, this is virtual. At 1 kilohertz, if I have a sound at 60 dB, it builds a virtual umbrella. Below the umbrella, all the sounds below the umbrella of all the frequencies is not heard when this is being heard. It is like umbrella when you are walking in the sun. When you spread the umbrella, what is your intention? Your intention is to cover your face. But if you see the ground, there is shadow on the ground. Did the ground ask you to protect it from the sun? No. As a consequence of what you do this, as a consequence of a tone at 60 hertz, 1 kilohertz of 60 dB amplitude, you will have a virtual shadow below which, for example, a sound of 2 kilohertz at around 3 dB is not heard, whereas a sound of 3.2 kilohertz of 6 dB is heard, only this much is heard, faintly heard. This is called frequency masking. Even worse is this. frequency mask happens for the entire Fletcher-Munson curve. Meaning, if you have a frequency mask at 1 kilohertz of 60 dB, if you have another signal at 4 kilohertz, that masking is very bad. At 8 kilohertz, it's terrible. You see, at 8 kilohertz, a 60 dB sound will make sure all this is not heard. So, higher the frequency, the masking effect is very large. Which means, up to here, 45 dB sound is not heard. Entire range is not heard. So, this is what happens with age. The reverse of this is used in your earphones. They get a ear checked and see which things have already got damaged, what portion, what intensity, so on and so forth. Also, there are critical bands. You see here, the ear from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz is like this. So there is a band which has its own sensitivity and its, for example here, you can see this is very sensitive part, less sensitive, extremely insensitive. So this is cut into various bands and you will have one band from 0 to 100 hertz, another band 100 to 200 hertz, another 200 to 300. You will see here slowly the bandwidth is increasing. It's not uniform. And at higher frequencies, you will see there is one last band, which means between 15.5 kilohertz and 18.75 kilohertz, 22 kilohertz, the ear behaves almost the same. So when you say critical bands, it is the sensitivity of the ear in that. And you can see here, slowly the bandwidth for each band is increasing. It is not uniform. What is a uniform band? Uniform band is discrete Fourier transform. Can you do? Yesterday DFT was done? Fourier transform not done? Okay, so now you know why you use Fourier transform in your signal systems, all that course. Simply because DFT produces uniform bands like this, what you are seeing on the screen. So uniform bands. Uniform bands is convenient. DFT is very convenient because you have an algorithm and it works very well, very easy to code, compact, all that. But what is natural is this. So you can make a significant improvement in the quality without changing much of your sensors by simply modeling this as a wavelet, because wavelet naturally builds non-uniform bands. Wavelet gives you non-uniform bands naturally, whereas Fourier transform gives you uniform bands naturally. There's another interesting thing which you would have observed in, what do you observe in Deepavali? Particularly crackers. When some Lakshmi Pataki is blast, many of you hear like this, accidentally you may not be prepared, it blast, and then for next 30 seconds, 1 minute, you don't hear anything. This is called temporal masking. So, any loud tone will cause the hearing receptors in the inner ear to become saturated and require time to recover. So this is a capacitor model for they are building an analog ear. So in the analog ear, what they are doing is the sound pressure waves is converted to capacitor charge. So bank of capacitors get charged. So when a fully charged capacitor, if you put current into it, what happens? It will not take. It will take only after it discharges out. So same thing. So when you have a loud sound, your ear gets saturated. During that time, whatever is spoken is not heard. Slowly, some of you get a ringing effect in your ear. It's very common. Okay? So this is how it is. So you have a loud noise of 60 dB and it will take about 100 milliseconds for it to come down to this. Again you can hear. If you hit 180 dB sound, what will happen? You don't have to go to speech and hearing. You don't need hearing aids because you are deaf for the rest of your life. Yeah? See, sound is very injurious. We don't keep. We talk about pollution. The biggest pollution in the world is sound and light. So these different masking tones will play this thing. So modeling the hearing process here and more appropriately the inner ear is critical in making better hearing aids. What is not to be overlooked is the psychoacoustics, the psychology of hearing. ನಾವು ಇದು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಪದ ಇದೆ ಜಾಣಕಿಗಳು ಅಂತ. It happens in meetings. We don't hear what they want to hear. Meeting is conducted for whom? Not for all of us. Meeting is conducted by the authority for the authority. Nothing to do with authority. This is time varying with age and far more challenging since it is more subjective and also hearing aids for geriatric population dominate the market now. Today, ಮುಂಚೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡೋರು ವಯಸ್ಸಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕಿವಿಡಾಯಿತು ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡೋರು. They were not bothered. Today, even at 90 years, people know that they can hear, they can enjoy music, they want to listen to others, they want to listen to others' phone call, all that. So they go on. It's a huge market. I'm not sure. In our own family, I know my aunt has some 1,60,000 rupee hearing aid. It doesn't work well. It's solution by his son, he's a professor in ASC. ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಶೋಕ ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡು ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅದು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಇಫ್ ದೇ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಲಿಸನ್ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಗುಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ದೆಮ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. The other aspect of background noise, which is also culture and urban environment specific, also needs to be factored. The background noise is a serious problem. That's why you see there is nobody to talk to in Northern Europe. Northern Europe, you don't have people to talk. Many have lost their ability to speak because they have nobody to listen to. Not here. Our problem is the opposite. See, we rarely say listen. We say please keep quiet because we want too much of background noise. And against this background noise, your hearing aid has to work. And the background noise makes 80 dB sound at certain frequencies, which are the only frequencies the old man can hear. So that gets masked out. It is impossible for him or her to hear. So this is exactly why it is against the background. Doing this is very important, and only we can do it. Others will not do it. So these are the two references for the time being for these topics. Particularly, probably one of the most influential books written way ahead of time. See, 1974, Jayant wrote this book. And Jayant wrote the book, and I think the second edition is with Nan. Jayant is very interesting. Jayant was our senior in Indian Institute of Science, and he, for his BE thesis, he did what is today known as the Jayant quantizer. He developed that. Then he went and told the head of the department, this is such important work, you must give me a PhD for this. Why should I get a BE degree? So as usual, what is our answer? You have paid fees for BE, you have registered for BE, you will get BE. Exactly what happened. Jayant left, after his BE he left, he went to US, and then after 40 years, they forgot I think, after 40 years, Indian Institute of Science Senate sent a letter to him asking him to become the director of IAC. He said, no, thank you, thanks for your offer. He was very polite. He didn't tell what happened because these people didn't know what they did to him. Okay. Yeah. So today the DSP has become more different because not just these topics, physics, chemistry, like biology, for example, a lot of anatomy and physiology is used in handling DSP today. Economics, environment, climate, psychology, anatomy, all these ideas are important to do DSP better today. It's just not maths and electronics and science. Okay. Let's move from concepts to algorithms. The first thing, like I said, how do I find this A1, A2, A8? How do I find B1 to B8 for A, B, C, D, Z? Similarly, Kannada will have much more. It will have 56, right? So it's interesting to look at these things. And what the linear prediction algorithm clearly says is the following: I have an envelope of an energy waveform. So that's why you will use magnitude squared function across frequency, which is exactly the Bode plot. So you do a log scale there. So magnitude of the Fourier transform plot is exactly what we are talking about. Suppose you have a waveform and you have samples of the waveform. The autocorrelation of this is a function of it. So energy is proportional to square of the signal. That's what you study. So square of the signal is a good representation through autocorrelation. So you take a signal and look at the autocorrelation of that, and you take a signal, a copy of it is full energy, and if you shift one same copy of the signal a little by one time scale, it is correlation with 1 delay, 2 delay, 3 delay, 4 delay, and if you have the entire range of the signal without overlap, the correlation is 0. So slowly the correlation will drop, indicating how much of energy is concentrated where. That's really where the issue of it. So this is it. So what is R0? A copy of the signal with itself. What is R1? A copy of the signal with 1 delay. R2, copy of the signal with 2 delay, 3 delay, n delay. If we have a n length, at n delay, n minus 1 is the last non-zero value you get. So you can construct a matrix like this. This is the autocorrelation matrix. It has many interesting properties. It is symmetric, real symmetric matrix. So this is the reason why you study linear algebra, because there are a lot of interesting properties with real symmetric matrix. So their eigenvalues are real, and if they are different, the eigenvectors are orthogonal, etc., etc. So many interesting things come about. Okay. So this is the spread of autocorrelation, which means spread of energy of the signal. You can do it in time domain or frequency domain. That's the reason why you study Parseval's theorem. What does Parseval's theorem tell you? Energy in time is equal to energy of signal in a stationary environment. Okay. And then there's some structure like autoplates and all that. Don't worry. What is very interesting is, I know very well this. Let's say this is analog. So even if I give 8 coefficients for A, it is not accurate. Analog needs infinite coefficients. So suppose I have finite coefficients to represent something, which means I am representing it erroneously. So there is some error. Now, I just said perception task, when is it good? When the error is similar to the original and preferably small. If error has to be small, square of the error is also small. If error is 0.1, square of the error is 0.01, much smaller than that. Okay? Only when the error is larger than 1, the square becomes larger. So it is easy to minimize square of the error, not the error. That's why you have always square of the error. Least square error is also energy of the error. Least square error allows you to do wonderful things like Gauss did. Gauss introduced the least square error criteria strongly, even though it was known much earlier. So you minimize the square of the error. So a function of the coefficients must give you minimum error, and you will not straight away get it. So what you do is very interesting. You take the autocorrelation, calculate first coefficient, find the error, minimize that error. While minimizing the error, you will create a second coefficient. Together you will minimize the square of the error, you will create 3, 4, 5, 6. Progressively you will create till you reach an acceptable minimum error. What is acceptable minimum error? Like what your students do to class. Do they come at 8:30 every day? First hour at least, I think, I don't know how much, 5 minutes you allow, 10 minutes. Full time. So, I mean, it's difficult, let's be clear. In any country, it's difficult. I'll tell you what happens when you come late to class. The world's best work was done by a student when he came late to class. This happened in 1937 or 38. So one of the students came late to the class. He came so late, the class was over. So while going those days, of course, you didn't have whiteboard. So the blackboard, the teacher had written 2 problems. Problem 1, problem 2. He wrote it and went back. Class was over. This fellow came, saw the class is empty. Only that date and the two questions, problem 1, problem 2. So he carefully noted down the two problems. He was unfortunately a sincere student. Okay. So he took it very seriously. I missed the class. This problem has been given as homework. Homework and assignments. The only difference between American university and Indian system is the following. They give assignments and homework very well. We don't give. We cannot give. We cannot give because the Xerox machine is there, so it will not work. Okay. But they gave homework exceedingly well, and the homework was research problems, which the teacher was exploring, but he or she couldn't solve it. So he used to give assignment saying, 40 of you think differently, and one of you will give me a hint as to what to do. This is exactly how your Huffman code was done. Huffman code was done in the class actually by Huffman, and Huffman never did any better work than his homework. His PhD was also not very good. The best work Huffman did was in Huffman code in the class. So this another interesting fellow, he came to, that was I think a Friday. So it was the last class. He took the problems, he didn't know when to submit. He got worried that he has to submit. Sat down and worked. The whole of next week, he attended the class, but he didn't submit the homework. And after 10 or 12 days, he went and gave, I'm sorry, I didn't know when I had to submit, but here are the two problems that were there on the board. I have submitted it. So the teacher also was not very keen about that problem. Who will attempt that problem? Anyways, keep it on the table, I will take a look. Kept it on the table, went away. After some 10 or 12 days, one day morning, 7 o'clock, 7:15, the teacher is walking towards this fellow's apartment in the campus. So his wife called him. Those days was nice because research scholars would get married. Our time, no problem. You finish your PhD, get job, then somebody will even think of you. Otherwise, no. Okay. So the lady said, "Yo, there's something wrong with you. Your professor is walking towards our house. You actually is turning to our road only, and she is panicking." So the came knocked. He said, "Can I come in?" He went. I said, "What? Is there anything wrong I have done?" He said, "No, you have not done anything wrong. You have finished your PhD." Those two were unsolved problems he had given. Right? Such problems still exist. So this fellow attempted. He is dancing, the father of linear programming. But you see, in 1939, he thought, you are registered for some degree, you will get a PhD. Because this is two unsolved problems in the world, you have done it. So we will both sit together and refine it, submit it. It will get published, you get your PhD. So he got his PhD in 1939, but he collected his degree in 1946. Because 1939 to 1945, World War happened, so he never went to the campus, like COVID, okay? So you see how nice it is for us, yeah? How nice it is for us. No challenge, nothing to worry, yet we are all the time worried, bothered and disturbed. Anyways, this is another interesting thing with this. So what it is you have a real symmetric matrix of water relation coefficients. Suppose this is the filter, A11, A12, whatever, like A1, A2, whatever. I must generate an error which is minimum. Okay? So what they did was, it's very difficult to see, you have to invert this. Ax equal to b, so x is A inverse b. Inverting a matrix is a very bad problem. This is time when you didn't even have good computers to code in punch card computers type. So what somebody did was very interesting. He said, I will progressively do. I will break this matrix n cross n into 1 cross 1, then 2 cross 2, 3 cross 3, 4 cross 4. Progressively I will build the coefficient. And he said, R0 into 1 is E0. That's the error. Solve for R0. R0 is known, solve for E0. Then expand R0, R1, R1, R0. Real symmetric. 1, 0 is there. And to create a basis in 2 dimensions, he simply inverted. 1, 0, he inverted to 0, 1 and flipped it. And slowly built. It's more interesting. Eventually, while solving, he ended up getting this. Okay. Finally, he got this. Predicted 2 cross 2 from 1 cross 1. use the predicted value of 2 cross 2 to solve 3 cross 3 where it predicted one more value, and it was called linear simply because he used a linear combination of basis vectors, whatever. Eventually it turned out that he solved this. For example, you take a signal 1 1 1 1, the autocorrelation matrix look like this, and if you solve R naught, R1, all that, alpha 1 1, alpha 1 2, all the coefficients you will get here. So you start with one coefficient, this is the value of the coefficient A11, the error is 0.45. Suppose you take 2, you use this and you see 0.80 became 0.889. So progressively the early coefficients get refined, a new coefficient comes. In the third step, the first coefficient gets refined twice, the second coefficient gets refined once, the third coefficient is introduced and carry on. So by the 10th iteration, you have an error 0.34. Earlier error was 0.45, slowly the error decreases. This is the idea of linear prediction, and what's very interesting is the man who did this was Norman Levinson, sometimes called Levinson-Durbin algorithm. What is more interesting about Levinson is he had brain cancer. So they told him, some late 1950s, early 60s, they told him, we have new chemotherapy and all which has come, you can take an operation and get your cancer cured. He said, what is the guarantee the cancer will be cured? They said, no guarantee, it has just started, we can't guarantee. Otherwise, you have about 6 months time to live is what they told him. He said, since you say there is no guarantee that I live, and even if I live, anyways they said they will cut the brain and remove part of it and all that because that had become tumorous. He said, interesting part of my brain may go away, and you say there is no guarantee I will be alive even after the operation. At least now I am sure I will live for 6 months. I have some interesting problems to solve, I will solve within them. This is the guarantee. And he died eventually about 7-8 months after that. Levinson died. By that time he had done many interesting things. So he started off with linear prediction coefficient. Today you have a family of linear prediction coefficient. Code excited linear predictor, absolute linear predictor, residual error prediction. So many, a family of linear prediction going up to 256 coefficients, which is now used for many of the very advanced codings. Okay? And you can see here all the telecom, speech and audio standards are built with type of codec. Self, vector self, adaptive self, so many kind of codec. Okay? And how it's done is done through what is called adaptive filtering. All these are adaptive, meaning you have A, the same filters will be done for B next, because of course earlier they had a bank of filters, A, B, C, D, all that. But today, as it's time varying, you need what is called a filter which adjusts the coefficients for different. For example, I say A lady says A next on the phone from the opposite side. It is different. The filter that is designed coefficient for a male voice A is different from that, is different from a child, etc. etc. So I need a system which adapts to the input waveform, and that's really the idea of an adaptive filter. The adaptive filter is simply a filter which changes the filter coefficient depending on some variation. That variation comes from an adaptation algorithm. And the adaptation algorithms are interesting. You have both open loop adaptation and closed loop. What is an example for open loop adaptation? It's exactly open loop and closed loop control system problem which has got shifted to this. What is open loop adaptation and what is closed loop adaptation? How many of you are from the generation which had TV where there was antenna on the rooftop? So how many times you have sent your brother up the roof and asking, turn the antenna. You have done that. How did you know the antenna position is correct? You were watching on the screen. Oh, stop. This is open loop adaptation. Closed loop is with feedback. Of course, today it's motorized, all that. So closed loop is superior, but closed loop has a problem like we all know in controls that it can become unstable. So I'll not go into much details. This is the algorithm. Basically, it's a FIR filter whose coefficients are adapted step by step till it reaches a minimum error situation. For example, today all your high-end Kia cars, all that have this adaptation algorithm, including the LMS adaptive filter built into the car. The sensors are in the tire. Between the tire threads, sensors are there, and when the tire runs on the road, the sensors will pick the friction of the road and convey it. So that will adjust the air-fuel ratio, it will adjust the suspension, and suddenly, particularly in Kashmir and other places, when you suddenly are on the road and you turn behind a hill, that road is full of ice. Suddenly the car starts skidding. Immediately this adaptive filter will tell, overrule the driver, automatic control, the car takes over because the human driver cannot control it. So such things are built. That's why the cars are very expensive. Cars are 35 lakhs, of which 20 to 22 lakhs is only electronics. Mechanical part is only about 10 lakhs. And today more and more electronics in everything. So all of them do this. In fact, all of them use adaptive LMS algorithm, the window half algorithm on the DSP class. Okay. So the idea is, how do I know to adapt? How do I know how to adapt? That's the reason why we use square of the error. So y equal to x square. If x is the error, y equal to x square. Y, how does y equal to x square look like? Parabola. What is unique about a parabola? This is parabola. What is unique about a parabola? What is unique about a parabola? This is a parabola in 2 dimensions. This is a parabola in 3 dimensions. But what is unique about the shape of parabola?
Only one minimum.
One minima. Global minima. Local minima is also global minima. And it's called convex functions. That's why you need to study. You need to study optimization. Engineering is all about optimization. Engineering is not about solution. Today 100 people can solve a problem because everybody has resources to solve. Historically, you see here even in our college they have done some electric vehicle, they have done some formula car and all that. Students have done it. 40 years back only Ambassador car company, Fiat car company could do it. Others couldn't do it. Today anybody can.
Sir, should we take break for tea breaks?
Oh, if tea is there, yeah, fine.
Yes, sir.
Ah.
Yes, sir. We have tea break, sir. 5 minutes.
5 okay, 5 yeah. We had a tea break. You also ate some snacks. When you have a convex function, you can do that. Instead of solving, go eat and come, it will get solved. So the whole idea is to convert functions to which look like convex, and then semi-convex. All that they do now is exactly what. So now people use a lot of neural network. Neural network is used because when the function is not convex, you have serious difficulty doing optimization. Neural networks will do that. That's why neural networks are used, because more and more non-convex functions are being used, even though we make attempts to. So what happens with convex function is, as this is square of the error. So this is the function of the coefficients. As the coefficients change, you calculate the error, and if the error increases, you change the coefficient, reduce it. So h plus delta minus delta h, it will come again it is. So when you change the coefficient slightly and on both sides the error increases, you have reached a minimum. So how do you know you want to come here? When the error increases, you went from here to here. The gradient was like this. Where should you go? You should go in the opposite direction. Against this is why it's called conjugate gradient algorithm. Because you calculate, how do you calculate the gradient? Slope. F of x minus f of x plus delta x divided by delta x. That is the slope. So go against the direction of the slope, opposite, conjugate gradient. And you descend down. That's why it's called gradient descent algorithm. Today, 99% of machine learning uses only gradient descent algorithm. Because that is the only thing that works. Even with that it is difficult because you will create approximately a 1000 cross 1000 matrix which you have to invert. Very difficult. So gradient descent is mantra for most problems today. Okay? And this was done long back. See here, error of change in coefficient, and you do some calculus and you calculate all this. Don't worry. More important is what they did was since it is large numbers, they do what is called the minimizing the expectation of the error. So expectation is very similar to what we thought of. So when is the expectation close to zero? When the value itself is close to zero. When the numbers are small, the expectation of this is also very small. So this is really what the Windrow algorithm really did. And you see how the algorithm behaves. So the coefficients oscillate a little, whereas the error function slowly decreases till it reaches a minimum. Okay. This is the LMS algorithm popularized by Wiener and Kornberg. It's also called the Wiener filter. Okay. But made very popular by Windrow and Hoff. So LMS algorithm was popularized. Iterative approach to find the optimal solution. So slowly, step by step, like I said, you see here, step by step. This is the minimum, but the response will be like this. It will go up, come down, go up, come down. Slowly, it will settle down. And even after settling down, it will not remain like this. It will have small ripples. Because all the time it's trying to change. It doesn't know it is at the optimum. It will change a little and say, oh, I have overshot, I'll come down. So this is typical, but small ripple is there. And of course, because LMS algorithm is used everywhere, Gauss has become immortal now. Because Gauss introduced the least square and was calculating celestial mechanics. There was no earthly mechanics problem then. Then there are hundreds of DSP applications, all of which use LMS algorithm. And you have to notice the feedback which is needed. So what feedback does is the following. It adapts. That's why you have feedback from the students. Why do you have feedback from the students? Why do you, of course, you take feedback before giving the grades. Otherwise, the feedback will be very bad. So you threaten them with bad grades, they give you good feedback. That's why things don't improve in any college, because you don't get good feedback. You always get convenient feedback. So feedback leads to adaptation first, and adaptation taken properly, that is feedback taken properly, adaptation done properly, cumulatively leads to learning. I had an interesting colleague, of course she was from IIT Kanpur. She worked with one of the toughest guys. He nicknamed her Ganga. Because every day evening she would come and cry for 2 hours. Oh my God. Every day she would cry for 2 hours. Then all the colleagues would say, relax, he's a very good scholar, he will learn a lot. Oh, again, next day again. For 3 years she cried. At the end she did her PhD. But she became one of the best in India. So learning, good learning is torturous. It can be fun. It can be fun, but most of the time it is torturous. People want to avoid torture, so they don't want to learn. So today machine learning is done because it involves a lot of feedback. This had one feedback, that will have 10,000 feedbacks. So it will learn very well, and that's really so. Adaptation for so rigid, fixed filter, no adaptation. When you have a flexible adaptation filter or adaptive mechanism, it has a potential to learn. So you in just this LMS adaptation, you put little more of learning theories, and you end up doing machine learning. Okay, so a lot of it, various avatars of filter, mostly use lattice filter, which is very popular, lattice structure, and plenty of applications. In fact, 99% of all the applications of DSP in the world uses LMS adaptive filter. One particular thing I want to mention is how the echoes are cancelled. So this is a telephone echo problem, which is a similar echo problem to what you see in mobile phone. Suppose on mobile phone you press the button speaker, you will suddenly see a lot of echo, because when you put the speaker, the surrounding things are also there. So echo cancellation is very important, and you have A speaking to B. A's speech reflected back from the terminal is echo. Similarly, B speaking, the echo for B is B speaking to A, reflection at this terminal coming back. So alpha times the original signal delayed by time duration is echo, and alpha is less than 1. So now what you do is you have at every terminal A and B, you introduce what is called the echo canceller chip, which is a DSP chip, which is programmed, which has the LMS algorithm. So slowly it adapts. So it receives, that's why when you talk for some time, first 2-3 seconds there are a lot of noise and disturbance. You say hello, hello, that fellow says hello, not. Then after some time the quality improves because this chip adapts to the voice. So at terminal B, A's voice is converted to a linear prediction coefficient, this thing, adaptation done, and 180-degree phase shift is introduced. When you introduce 180-degree phase shift to the synthesized signal, it cancels the original signal. Today you have it in all the cars. That's why high-end cars are very expensive. On the door, rim, and in the body, there are sensors. Outside Madhve procession hogta idre, it will pick up the sounds of the marriage procession, synthesize that sound itself, shift it by 180 degrees and play it inside the car. So even if there is a marriage procession outside the car, inside the car it's very quiet. So all these are typically what is used even for your earphone. Okay. So, and of course there is one more, we are talking about signal enhancement. Suppose you don't have a secondary source, you can take the primary source, delay it by this delay is adaptation. How much delay? And add it to the original, it will cancel out. This is exactly how all nursing homes have what is called a fetal monitor. The fetal monitor uses this. It takes the mother's heartbeat, delays it, adds to the mother's heartbeat, and straight away on the screen you will see the baby's heartbeat. So the baby's heartbeat is suppressed by the mother's heartbeat, like what I am talking. I am suppressing this sound. Similarly, it is done like that. So adaptive LMS algorithm is used in 100 different ways. At least 5 different ways is used only in your hearing aids and other things. So what it does is it cancels. Suppose you have a sound mixture of narrowband and wideband signal, you can eliminate one of them. This is what happens whenever, for example, the cockpit voice recorder. Whenever you have a plane crash, you say there is a black box. That black box is decoded in US. They are the ones who have all this, and now some local decoding is going on. But they decode it and clearly say what sequence, who spoke first, what was spoken. That's how they record and investigate the cause for accident, make it because it's an insurance issue. Okay? So this is the adaptive linear prediction, which is what is used. So you have linear prediction, N filter prediction, LMS, and it's an adaptive version. It means for every instant, filters will change. Of course, we have this lot of Fourier domain, the fast Fourier transform algorithm which I mentioned. The discrete version, how it is used. And we can do models beyond the Fourier. One of the models that is very effective today is what's called the Gaussian mixture model, which is heavily used in machine learning, which means instead of a linear combination of sinusoids, can I have a combination of Gaussian? So in the combination of Fourier coefficients, what you are doing is finding out A0, A1, A2, B0, B1, B2, etc. Here, mixture of Gaussians, for each Gaussian, find the mean and variance. And if you need 100 Fourier coefficients to model a process, you can do it with 10 Gaussians. So that's one thing, and it matches very well. Unlike sinusoid, which is continuous. Suppose you cut a sinusoid, what happens? Suppose you cut a sinusoid, only this much you want, you cut it, what happens? You are in trouble. Because if you cut the sinusoid in time domain, in frequency domain, sin omega by omega will happen, starts simply. Whereas Gaussian automatically tapers down. So mixture of Gaussian is dominating, and you need to calculate just the mean and variance. So you have 5 Gaussians, mixture of 5 Gaussians, you have to calculate 5 mean and 5 variance, for which algorithm like expectation maximum algorithm is used. In fact, today almost all your high-end mobile phones have EM algorithms running. Okay, so this is your EM algorithm, very popular. So EM, LMS, these are the new things that happen compared to Fourier and other things. This is the calculation for expectation maximum. And very interesting, you see, we also used speech data in one of them, and the answers we got is almost 100%. Whereas the best was 85% earlier. Now getting 100 with mixtures of Gaussian is very easy. And what happens in mixture of Gaussian, you'll see here. This is 1 Gaussian. This is 2. This is 3. This is 4. This is 5. This is 6. 6 is as bad as single Gaussian. So it has this interesting property. You see here, this is, if you want to call one signal and one noise, I want separation. Signal and noise are mixed. With 2 Gaussians, small separation. I can put a filter here. But when I put a filter here, this part of the signal and this part of the noise is not eliminated. I can put a filter here. Correctly it will do. But this is a very sharp filter. Exactly here, 90 degrees. But the more sharp the filter is, the order of the filter is very high. More cost, more computation, more storage. At 4 Gaussians, it is like going for a tea break. This 1 second, third order filter will do the job. But if you overdo it, 5 Gaussians, very bad. 6 is even bad. So this has both a underfitting and overfitting problem, which is common in machine learning. In machine learning solutions, data either you underfit or overfit. Both are bad. So proper fit, right? So this is, of course, lot of iterations. You can see here 40,000 iterations before it converges to a good solution. That's why machine learning solutions are computationally very intensive. Either you take support from the cloud or you don't do. Don't solve problems. You can solve for your thesis, but don't recommend to others to do machine learning. Machine learning is not a common solution technique. And today, how the machine learning is same. For example, I wanted to do speaker recognition problem. Earlier, I would put many speakers, extract the feature, recognize. Today, I don't do that. I collect lot of data, different speakers, take all the feature, pitch, mel spectrum, all that, put it into a training model and put it into a trained classifier. Then an unknown speaker comes, I extract the features, compare this. So machine learning today is 99% lookup table problem. But in that lookup table, you have 10,000 different solutions. You match with the nearest and say that is really, it can still be wrong. But if it is wrong, they'll say, okay, this is wrong, you add this into the database. So after some 2-3 years, you will have some 1 million solution, and any unknown, you can get a very close match. That's exactly how people are solving today. So you collect data, you extract the features, build a trained classifier, whether it's a machine learning or deep learning. For machine learning, you have a trained feature extractor, that is a domain expert. But in deep learning, you don't need a human expert. You can work it out. That's why deep learning is becoming popular, because I want to get rid of this fellow who is very expensive and not available. So this is how you train a lot, train the algorithm, use. Suppose the new data comes, you collect the answer, and if it is wrong, feed it back. So one good thing about machine learning is the more wrong it is, you are happy, because you know next time, of course, by the time this patient is dead, but it's okay, you can continue, right? So this is really what they are doing. Yeah. Deep learning does improve the performance, whereas all other learning mechanisms tend to show a saturation. For example, now it's saturated. 4 o'clock we have to close. Okay? Yeah. So mostly non-linear and time varying, multitasking, and it uses mixture models and all that. So a whole range of algorithms, whether it's supervised or unsupervised. That's another problem with machine learning. You need to learn a lot. Just knowing 8051 programming, people get a job. But those days are over. And nobody wants to learn because there's so much to learn. Analytical techniques, coding, algorithms, etc. etc. Anyways. So all problems in the world are two kinds. Either you have labels where you can do supervised learning, or you have no labels where you do clustering. And today, unlabeled data dominates, and the fake is filled with unlabeled data, even though they give you a false label. A lot of variation, right? From supervised to unsupervised, we have many other things: deep learning, reinforced, semi-supervised, recurrent, etc. etc. Okay, so it's only in recent times that serious efforts to improve quality of hearing aids is being done. So I hope at least one or two of you, now that you actually have AI organizational speech and reading close by, you must not miss this opportunity. Good work happens not in the colleges. There is no college in the world which does good work. Good work happens when college is linked with a lab. In MIT and Harvard, the lab is within the university, that's why good work happens. Here, you have a lab outside. Unless you have lab data, lab techniques, field trials, etc., and then end user is also checked. So don't miss that. It's an interesting thing. I wish I was doing my PhD now. I'm now registered here, spent 3 years in R&D Institute of Speech. It is also close to my house. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights and engaging the session regarding psychoacoustics, applications of DSP in various fields, temporal masking, and various speech processing algorithms. Your knowledge and expertise helped us a lot.